The scan of the boarding pass should have been a simple, satisfying beep. Instead, it was the sound of a gate slamming shut on dignity. Maya stood there, clutching a first-class ticket she had earned with sweat and tears, only to be looked at like she was a stain on the pristine carpet of the priority lane. They didn't just deny her boarding, they tried to erase her right to be there. But arrogance has a way of blinding people to the truth, standing right in front of them. The gate agent smirked, thinking he held all the power, completely unaware that the woman he was humiliating was the daughter of the man who wrote the very safety regulations he was currently violating. He thought he was kicking off a nuisance. He was actually inviting a hurricane. The air inside Terminal 4 of JFK International Airport was thick with the specific kind of tension that only holiday travel could manufacture. It was a friction of distinct sounds, the squeak of rubber wheels on polished terrazzo, the rhythmic drone of announcements regarding unattended luggage, and the low, anxious hum of 1,000 conversations happening at once. For Maya Davis, however, the noise was background static. She stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows of Gate B12, watching the ground crew casually toss luggage onto the conveyor belt of the massive Boeing 777 that would take her to London. She adjusted the strap of her leather tote bag, a simple but high-quality piece that had been a graduation gift to herself 3 years ago. She checked her watch. 10:15 a.m. Priority boarding for Flight 882 to Heathrow was scheduled to begin in 5 minutes. Maya took a deep breath, trying to loosen the knot of anxiety that always formed in her chest before a flight. It wasn't a fear of flying. She had grown up around aviation. Her father, Thomas Davis, lived and breathed airplanes. No, the anxiety came from the airport itself, the theater of judgment that played out every time she stepped into a priority lane. She smoothed the front of her blazer. She was dressed comfortably but sharply, pressed charcoal trousers, a cream silk blouse, and the blazer. Professional. Unassailable. Or so she hoped. At 26, Maya was already a junior partner at a top-tier architectural firm, a position she had fought tooth and nail for. This trip was a mix of business and pleasure, a site visit for a new eco-friendly hotel project in Kensington, followed by a week of catching up with her dad, who was currently in London for an international safety summit. "Attention passengers of Flight 882 to London Heathrow," the intercom crackled, the voice of the gate agent sharp and nasally. "We are now ready to begin boarding. We invite our first-class and diamond medallion passengers to board at this time through the priority lane." The crowd surged forward, like water released from a dam. Maya waited a beat, letting the most aggressive passengers jostle for position before she stepped into the queue. She was holding her phone, the digital boarding pass displaying the bold 1A seat assignment. Ahead of her, a tall man in a bespoke grey suit, whose watch likely cost more than Maya's car, breezed past the podium. The gate agent, a man with slicked-back hair and a name tag that read Preston, flashed him a winning, obsequious smile. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson." "Pleasant flight," Preston said, his voice dripping with practiced charm. Next was a couple, elderly, draped in cashmere. Preston scanned their passes with a flourish. "Right this way, folks. Champagne is already being poured." Maya stepped up to the podium. She held her phone out, the screen brightness turned up to the maximum for the scanner. Preston didn't look at the phone. He didn't look at the scanner. He looked directly at Maya, his eyes flicking up and down her frame in a rapid, dismissive assessment. The smile he had worn for Mr. Henderson vanished, replaced by a look of bored irritation, the kind one might give to a child wandering into an executive meeting. "Excuse me, miss," Preston said, his voice dropping an octave, losing all its warmth. "The economy line is over there." He gestured vaguely to his left, where a chaotic mass of people was already forming a serpentine line. Maya didn't move. She kept her phone extended. "I know where economy is," she said, her voice calm, though her pulse spiked. "I'm in first class. Seat 1A. Preston let out a short, sharp sigh, the sound of a man burdened by the incompetence of the world. He leaned over the podium, not to scan her pass, but to encroach on her space. "Look, miss, I don't have time for this. We have a full flight today, and we need to keep the boarding process efficient. Zone 1 is for our premium passengers. Please step aside so the actual priority passengers can board." The words hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Actual priority passengers. "I am a premium passenger," Maya stated, her grip on her phone tightening until her knuckles turned the color of ivory. If you would just scan the pass, you'd see that. Behind her, a heavy sigh erupted from a passenger. Maya glanced back to see a woman with a tightly pulled ponytail and an oversized designer handbag tapping her foot impatiently. "Can we move this along?" the woman snapped. "Some of us actually paid for this lane." Maya felt the heat rise up her neck, a familiar mix of shame and fury. It was the assumption, the instant, unconscious calculation that put her in the does not belong category. "Sir," Maya said, turning back to Preston, her voice firming up. "Scan the code. That is all I am asking you to do. It's a valid ticket." Preston crossed his arms over his chest. He was enjoying this, she realized. It was a petty exercise of power for a man who likely had very little of it outside this 10-foot radius of carpet. "I'm not scanning anything until you show me some ID. And I don't mean a library card. I need to see a passport that matches the name on that ticket." "You didn't ask the man before me for his passport," Maya pointed out. "Or the couple before him." "Random security check." Preston lied smoothly, a smirk playing on his lips. "It's company policy. We have to be vigilant. You fit the profile for additional screening." Maya stared at him. "The profile? What profile is that? The profile of a young black woman sitting in first class?" The air around the podium went cold. The woman behind Maya gasped dramatically. Preston's face reddened, not with embarrassment, but with anger. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. "Now you're causing a scene. I asked for ID. You're refusing. That's grounds for denial of boarding right there." Maya reached into her tote bag, her hands shaking slightly. She wasn't refusing. She had nothing to hide. She pulled out her passport, the blue American booklet, well-worn and filled with stamps from Tokyo, Dubai, Paris. She slapped it onto the podium, perhaps a little harder than necessary. "There," she said. "Maya Davis." Preston picked it up gingerly, as if it might be contaminated. He opened it, looking from the photo to Maya's face and back again. He took an agonizingly long time, scrutinizing the holographic overlay, bending the spine, holding it up to the light. It was theater. Pure, humiliating theater. "Well," Maya demanded. Preston tossed the passport back onto the podium. It slid across the surface and nearly fell off the edge. Maya had to lunge to catch it. "It looks okay," Preston muttered, clearly disappointed. "But the system is finicky today. I need to verify the payment method used to purchase this ticket. We've had a lot of credit card fraud lately involving last-minute first-class upgrades." "I bought this ticket 3 months ago," Maya said, her voice rising. "With my own card. This is harassment." "It's protocol," Preston barked, suddenly shouting, drawing the attention of the entire gate area. "Ma'am, step out of the line immediately. You are blocking the flow of boarding. I need you to stand over there." He pointed to a cordoned-off area near a trash can. "While I call security to verify your transaction. If the card comes back stolen, the police will be waiting." "I am not stepping anywhere," Maya said, planting her feet. "You scan this boarding pass right now. I have done nothing wrong." "That's it," Preston said. He picked up the phone on his desk, his eyes locking onto hers with a look of malicious triumph. "Security to gate B12. I have a disruptive passenger refusing to follow crew instructions. Potential fraud. I need her removed." The woman behind Maya, the one with the ponytail, pushed past her. "Finally," she muttered, bumping Maya's shoulder hard. "People like you always think the rules don't apply." Maya stood frozen as the line of actual priority passengers streamed past her, avoiding eye contact, stepping around her like she was a traffic cone. She watched Preston laughing and joking with them as he scanned their tickets, his demeanor shifting instantly from tyrant to servant. She looked at her phone. Her father had texted her 10 minutes ago. "Can't wait to see you, kiddo. The summit is boring me to tears. I need my favorite architect to tell me about real structures." Maya's thumb hovered over the reply button. She could text him. She could tell him right now. But a stubborn pride welled up inside her. She shouldn't need her father to fix this. She was Maya Davis. She was a professional. She could handle a petty tyrant like Preston. But as two uniformed airport police officers appeared at the end of the concourse, their hands resting near their belts, marching straight toward her with grim expressions, Maya realized that being right might not be enough. The game was rigged, and Preston was the one keeping score. "Ma'am," the first officer said, his voice booming as he approached. He was a large man with a buzz cut and a name tag that read, "Officer Miller." "We have a report of a disturbance. You need to come with us." "I haven't caused a disturbance," Maya pleaded, her voice cracking for the first time. "He refused to scan my ticket. He's discriminating against me." "He says you're refusing to clear the priority lane," Miller said, not listening, his hand reaching out to grab her upper arm. "Let's go. You can explain it at the station. You're not getting on this flight." As the officer's heavy hand clamped down on her blazer, crumpling the fabric, Maya looked back at Preston. He gave her a little wave, a sarcastic flutter of fingers, before turning back to the next passenger. "Welcome aboard," he said brightly. Maya felt the tears sting her eyes, not of sadness, but of pure, white-hot rage. She let the officers lead her away, the eyes of 300 people burning into her back. "Okay," she thought, the shock beginning to fade into a cold, calculated resolve. "You want to play power games? Let's play." She reached into her pocket and hit the speed dial for Dad. The walk from Gate B12 to the airport security substation was less than 500 yards, but to Maya it felt like a death march. Officer Miller kept a firm grip on her arm, a physical manifestation of her sudden loss of autonomy. Every glance from a passing traveler felt like an indictment. She saw the hushed whispers, the sideways looks, the instinctive clutching of children as they passed. In the span of 10 minutes, she had gone from a respected professional on her way to an international business meeting to a pariah, tagged as a disturbance. They brought her to a windowless room, tucked behind a bank of vending machines near the restrooms. It smelled faintly of ammonia and stale coffee. There was a metal table bolted to the floor and 3 uncomfortable plastic chairs. "Sit," Officer Miller commanded, releasing her arm and gesturing to a chair. Maya sat. She didn't slouch. She maintained the same posture she used in boardroom presentations when million-dollar contracts were on the line. "Officer," Maya said, her voice steady despite the tremors running through her hands, which she clasped tightly on the table. "I need to know what I am being charged with. I have a right to know why I am being detained." Miller sighed, pulling a notepad from his pocket. He looked bored. This was routine for him. "You're not being charged yet. You're being detained for interfering with flight operations and failing to comply with airline personnel instructions. The gate agent, Mr. Preston, stated you became belligerent when asked for standard identification. That is a lie, Maya said clearly. He refused to scan my first-class ticket. He targeted me. I gave him my passport. He threatened me with police action because I asked him to do his job. Miller tapped his pen on the pad. Look, lady, Preston is the gatekeeper. His word goes. If he says you're a security risk, then you're a security risk until proven otherwise. We have to wait for their supervisor to come down here and file a formal report. Until then, you sit tight. He turned to leave the room. My phone, Maya said. I need to make a call. Only if it's to a lawyer, Miller said over his shoulder. It's to my father, Maya said. And trust me, you want me to make this call. Something in her tone, a steely resonance that cut through the drab surroundings, made Miller pause. He shrugged. Make it quick. No speakerphone. He stepped outside, leaving the door slightly ajar. Maya fumbled with her phone. The connection tone rang 3 times. Maya, everything all right? Her father's voice was warm, accompanied by the faint background noise of clinking china and murmuring voices. He was likely at the pre-summit luncheon in London. Dad, Maya said, and despite her best efforts, her voice hitched. The dam she had built against the humiliation began to crack. The tone on the other end changed instantly. The warmth evaporated, replaced by an intense, focused alertness. Maya, what is it? Are you hurt? I'm at JFK, she managed. I'm in a security holding room. They pulled me off the flight. There was a 2-second silence that felt louder than shouting. Who pulled you off? Why? The gate agent. His name was Preston at gate B12. Dad, I had my ticket. First class, 1A. I was in the priority line. He just looked at me and told me to go to economy. When I showed him my ticket, he wouldn't scan it. He demanded my passport, accused me of fraud, said I fit a profile. Then he called the cops, said I was causing a disturbance. She heard her father inhale sharply. It was the sound Thomas Davis made right before he dismantled a negligent airline executive in a congressional hearing. Did you raise your voice? Did you threaten him? Thomas asked. He needed the facts. He was a man of data. No, I just stood my ground. I asked him to scan the ticket. I showed him my passport. The people behind me were jeering at me, Dad. It was humiliating. A tear finally escaped, tracking hot down her cheek. Now the police officer here says I have to wait for a supervisor to file a report. I'm going to miss the flight. The meeting tomorrow. Forget the meeting, Thomas said. His voice had gone eerily quiet. It was the voice of a man who knew exactly where the levers of power were buried, because he was the one who had installed them. Thomas Davis wasn't just the director of the Office of Aviation Safety. He was a legend in the industry. He had spent 30 years investigating crashes, writing protocols, and staring down CEOs who prioritized profit over human lives. He knew the federal aviation regulations, the FARs, better than the people who wrote them. He knew exactly what constituted a legal denial of boarding, and he knew exactly what constituted a violation of federal anti-discrimination laws in air travel. Maya, listen to me very carefully, Thomas said. Are you safe right now? Is the officer threatening you? No, he's just indifferent. He's outside the door. Okay, hang up the phone. Do not say another word to anyone. Not the police, not the airline supervisor if they show up. Do not sign anything. I will handle this. Dad, what are you going to do? You're in London. I may be in London, Maya, but my jurisdiction is global. The cold fury in his voice made her shiver, even though it wasn't directed at her. That gate agent just made the last mistake of his career. Sit tight. The cavalry is coming. The line went dead. Maya lowered the phone, wiping her face. She was still trapped in a dirty room at JFK, but for the first time since she stepped up to that podium, she didn't feel alone. 4,000 miles away, in the opulent ballroom of the Corinthia Hotel in London, Thomas Davis stood up from a table adorned with white linen and crystal glassware. He didn't excuse himself to the surrounding dignitaries, the head of the British CAA, the Japanese Minister of Transport, and several Airbus executives. He simply walked away, phone already at his ear before he exited the gilded double doors. His first call was to his executive assistant in D.C., Sarah, a woman who could organize a G7 summit in her sleep. "Sarah, code red," Thomas barked. He didn't use the term lightly. "Maya is being detained at JFK by Horizon Air and Port Authority Police. Gate B12. Agent name is Preston. I need everything. Pull the flight manifest for Horizon 882. Pull the employee file for that agent. I want his full name, employee ID, training history, and any prior complaints. And get the JFK airport duty manager on the line, now." Sarah didn't ask questions. "On it, Director. 5 minutes." Thomas ended the call and immediately dialed another number. He didn't have to look it up. It was saved in his favorites. It rang once. "Thomas? I thought you were rubbing elbows with the Brits," answered a smooth, baritone voice. It was Arthur Pendleton, the CEO of Horizon Air. They had a professional relationship built on mutual respect and a healthy dose of fear on Pendleton's part. "Arthur." "We have a problem," Thomas said. He walked into an empty alcove in the hotel hallway, staring out a window at the rain-slicked streets of London. "What kind of problem? Is it the 737 MAX certification again? Because I swear my team is on top of—" "It's bigger than that, Arthur," Thomas cut him off. His voice was deathly calm. "It's about the systemic failure of your ground operations at your flagship hub, JFK. It's about a gross violation of FAR Part 382 regarding non-discrimination. And on a personal note, it's about your gate agent, a man named Preston, at Gate B12, currently detaining my daughter, Maya Davis, under false pretenses, and with the assistance of local law enforcement." There was dead silence on the other end of the line. Thomas could practically hear the blood drain from Pendleton's face. Your daughter?" Pendleton stammered. "Thomas, I had no idea. What happened?" Thomas recounted the events with surgical precision, stripping away the emotion and laying bare the regulatory violations. He refused a valid first-class ticket. He profiled her. He invented a security threat where none existed. He weaponized the police against a passenger who was merely asserting her contract of carriage. "Arthur, my daughter is sitting in a holding cell right now because your employee decided he didn't like the way she looked in the priority lane." "Jesus Christ," Pendleton whispered. "Thomas, I am mortified. I will call JFK immediately. We'll get her out of there. Get her on the next flight. Upgrade her. Comp the ticket." "No," Thomas said, his voice like cracking ice. "You don't get it. This isn't a customer service issue anymore. This is a federal investigation. I'm initiating a formal audit of Horizon Air's ground operations training protocols regarding baggage and passenger screening, specifically focusing on bias and discrimination. I want every training log for JFK ground staff on my desk by Monday morning. Thomas, please. An audit? That will cripple us. The press will have a field day. Can't we handle this internally? I'll fire the agent today." "Done." The agent is just a symptom, Arthur. The disease is the culture that allowed him to think he could get away with it. I'm calling Pete Buttigieg's office next to brief the secretary. Then I'm calling the FAA Regional Administrator in New York. You have about 10 minutes before your world explodes." Thomas hung up on one of the most powerful men in aviation. Back at JFK, at Gate B-12, the jet bridge had just retracted from the Boeing 787. Flight 882 was pushing back from the gate. Preston leaned against the podium, feeling a satisfying sense of a job well done. He had cleared the queue, managed the overbooking, and got the flight out on time. He picked up his lukewarm coffee and took a sip, sharing a laugh with a passing baggage handler. "Some people, right?" Preston said, shaking his head. "Think they own the place just because they bought a ticket." "Tell me about it," the handler agreed. "What was her deal?" Just some uppity attitude problem in first class. Tried to bypass security checks. Had to have police remove her." Preston lied smoothly, already rewriting the narrative in his head to make himself the hero who averted a crisis. He felt secure. He felt powerful. He was the king of Gate B-12. He had absolutely no idea that the gears of a massive, unstoppable machine had just begun to turn, and that he was standing directly between the teeth. The red phone behind the podium, the direct line from Horizon Air's corporate headquarters, began to ring shrilly. It was a sound Preston rarely heard, reserved only for dire emergencies like a crash or a credible terrorist threat. He frowned, setting down his coffee. He picked up the receiver. "Gate B-12, this is Preston." "Preston, this is Sarah Jenkins, Executive Assistant to the Director of the Office of Aviation Safety in Washington, D.C. A sharp female voice clipped out. "Do not move. Do not leave that podium. Airport security leadership and the Horizon Air Station manager are on their way to your location immediately. You are to surrender your access badge and await federal investigators." Preston's hand started to shake. "What? Who? Is this a joke?" "You detained Maya Davis," the voice said, cold as the grave. "You just kicked the daughter of Thomas Davis, the head of U.S. Aviation Safety, off a plane based on her race. It is very much not a joke. Stay put." The line went dead. Preston looked up, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Across the terminal concourse, he saw 3 men in suits walking briskly toward him. They weren't strolling travelers. They were moving with purpose. In the lead was Mr. Henderson, the Horizon Air Station manager for all of JFK, a man Preston had only seen from a distance at holiday parties. His face was thunderous. Flanking him were 2 grim-faced men wearing DHS lanyards. The color drained from Preston's world. The tiny kingdom he had built on petty authority and prejudice was about to crumble. The atmosphere in the holding room had shifted. It wasn't a physical change. The fluorescent lights still buzzed with an annoying flicker, and the smell of stale coffee still lingered. But the pressure in the air had dropped. Officer Miller, who had been leaning against the doorframe with an air of bored detachment, was now pacing. He kept checking his radio, his brow furrowed. Maya sat perfectly still. She hadn't touched her water. She hadn't checked her phone since the call with her father. She was waiting. She knew the way her father worked. Thomas Davis didn't shout. He mobilized. He was a force of nature disguised as a bureaucrat. The door to the holding room burst open, not with the aggressive shove Miller had used earlier, but with a frantic, desperate urgency. A man in a white dress shirt, adorned with the gold bars of a Port Authority captain, strode in. Behind him trailed a woman in a sharp navy suit, her face pale and drawn. She wore a lanyard that identified her as Catherine O'Connell, Horizon Air Regional Director. Officer Miller straightened up, looking startled. "Captain? I was just processing the—" "Shut up, Miller," the captain snapped, not even looking at him. He walked straight to Maya. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a terrified deference. "Miss Davis, I am Captain Reynolds, Shift Commander for Port Authority Police. I want to offer my sincerest apologies for this misunderstanding. Maya looked at him coolly. She didn't stand up. Misunderstanding, Captain. Your officer dragged me through the terminal like a criminal because I tried to board a flight I paid for. Reynolds winced. He shot a glare at Miller that promised weeks of desk duty. There has been a severe breakdown in communication. We have just received a direct inquiry from the Department of Homeland Security regarding your detention. We are releasing you immediately. No charges. No record. Catherine O'Connell stepped forward. She looked like she was about to be sick. Ms. Davis, she began, her voice trembling slightly. On behalf of Horizon Air, I cannot express how sorry we are. We have a car waiting to take you to the VIP lounge. We've rebooked you on the next flight to London in the Delta One suite, our partner airline, leaving in 2 hours. We will, of course, be refunding your original ticket in full and providing a voucher for... Maya held up a hand. The gesture was small, but it silenced the room. I don't want a voucher, Miss O'Connell, Maya said quietly. And I don't want a lounge. I want to know what is happening to the man who put me here. Preston. O'Connell swallowed hard. Mr. Preston has been relieved of his post. He is being escorted to the administrative offices as we speak. Good, Maya said. She stood up, smoothing her blazer. Then take me to him. Miss Davis, I don't think that's necessary. I want to look him in the eye when he explains to his boss why he thought my passport was fake, Maya said. Unless you'd prefer I call my father back and tell him Horizon Air is shielding the employee who violated federal discrimination laws? O'Connell went even paler. Right this way, Ms. Davis. Meanwhile, at Gate B12, the scene was one of confusion and hushed whispers. The boarding door was closed, Flight 882 had pushed back, but the drama was far from over. Preston was standing by the podium, his face a mask of confusion. 2 large men in dark suits, corporate security, were flanking him. He looked small between them. He wasn't wearing his Horizon Air blazer anymore. One of the security agents had asked him to remove it. I don't understand, Preston stammered for the 10th time. I followed protocol. She was agitated. She refused to step aside. I have the right to deny boarding for safety reasons. Save it for the inquiry, Preston, one of the security agents said flatly. Then the procession arrived. It was a sight that stopped travelers in their tracks. Maya Davis walked down the center of the concourse, flanked by the police captain and the regional director of the airline. She walked with her head high, her stride purposeful. Preston saw her, and his eyes widened. He expected her to be in handcuffs. He expected her to be gone. Instead, she looked like she owned the terminal. They stopped 10 feet from him. Is this him? O'Connell asked, her voice icy. That's him, Maya said. Preston puffed out his chest, trying to salvage some shred of authority. Ms. O'Connell, this passenger was disruptive. She... Badge! O'Connell interrupted, holding out her hand. Excuse me? Give me your security badge, now. Preston's hands shook as he unclipped the ID card from his shirt. He handed it over. O'Connell took it and handed it to one of the security guards. You are suspended pending an immediate investigation, effective this second, O'Connell stated, loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. You are not to speak to any customers. You are not to access any Horizon terminals. You are to come with us to the conference room. The CEO is on the video link, and the director of the Office of Aviation Safety is joining us remotely. Preston's knees actually buckled. He grabbed the edge of the podium to steady himself. The director? Her father, O'Connell whispered, leaning in close so only Preston could hear. You just racially profiled the daughter of the man who regulates our entire existence. Do you have any idea what you've done? The color left Preston's face, so completely he looked like a wax figure. He looked at Maya. For the first time, he really looked at her. He didn't see a suspect or a problem. He saw the architect of his destruction. Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just looked at him with a profound, pitying disappointment. "I told you," she said softly. "I just wanted you to scan the ticket." The administrative offices of Horizon Air at JFK were located in a tower overlooking the tarmac, a stark contrast to the chaotic terminals below. The main conference room was a glass-walled enclosure that felt less like a meeting place and more like an interrogation chamber. Preston sat at the far end of a long mahogany table. He was alone on his side. On the other side sat Catherine O'Connell, the head of HR for the region, and the station manager. But the real power was on the massive 85-inch screen mounted on the wall. The screen was split. On the left was Arthur Pendleton, the CEO of Horizon Air, sitting in his Washington, D.C. office, looking furious. On the right was Thomas Davis. Thomas didn't look furious. He looked like a judge delivering a death sentence. He was wearing his reading glasses, reviewing a document on his desk. "Mr. Preston," Thomas began. His voice was amplified by the conference room speakers, deep and resonant. "Do you know what fare part 382-19 represents?" Preston swallowed dryly. "No, sir. It states," Thomas recited without looking up, "that a carrier must not refuse to provide transportation to a qualified individual with a disability on the basis of his or her disability. While that doesn't apply here directly, let's look at 49 U.S.C. Section 401127. An air carrier or foreign air carrier may not subject a person in air transportation to discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, or ancestry." Thomas took off his glasses and looked into the camera lens. It felt like he was staring into Preston's soul. "I have the transcript of your interaction with my daughter," Thomas said. "I also have the security footage. I watched you scan 3 white passengers without asking for ID. I watched you smile at them. Then I watched my daughter approach. Your body language changed. You didn't scan her ticket. You demanded a passport. You demanded a credit card verification. Tell me, Mr. Preston, what specific security protocol were you following that required a secondary financial audit of a first-class passenger at the gate door?" I thought it was fraud," Preston whispered. "We had a memo about fraud." "I have that memo too," Thomas countered instantly. "The memo warns about bulk ticket purchases made with stolen cards. Maya's ticket was a single purchase, made 90 days ago, linked to a Sky Miles account with 10 years of history. Did you check her history?" "I didn't have time," Preston lied. "The logs show you spent 4 minutes arguing with her," Thomas said. "In 4 minutes, you could have checked her history 10 times. You didn't check because you didn't care. You saw a young black woman in first class, and you decided she didn't belong there. You decided she was a fraud." "I was protecting the airline," Preston pleaded, looking at his CEO on the screen for support. Arthur Pendleton leaned forward. "Protecting us? You've exposed us to a civil rights lawsuit, a federal audit, and a PR nightmare that is already trending on Twitter because a passenger filmed the arrest. You didn't protect us, Preston. You disgraced us." Preston flinched as if he'd been slapped. "Here is what is going to happen," Thomas said, taking control of the room again. "This isn't just about you losing your job, Mr. Preston. That is a given. This is about ensuring you never hold a position of authority over another human being in the travel industry again." "Please," Preston choked out. "I have a mortgage. I have kids." "Maya has a career," Thomas shot back, his voice rising for the first time, a sudden crack of thunder. "She has a reputation. You tried to destroy both in front of 300 people. You used the police as your personal henchmen to enforce your bias. You humiliated her. Do not speak to me about your mortgage." Thomas turned his attention to the CEO on the other side of the screen. "Arthur, I expect this employee's termination to be processed immediately for cause. Violation of federal law and company code of conduct. Furthermore, I am flagging his file in the Federal Employment Database for aviation workers. He is a security risk. He uses his authority to harass passengers. He is done." "Agreed," Pendleton said without hesitation. "Catherine, take his badge. Escort him out of the building. He is banned from all Horizon Air flights and properties permanently." Catherine O'Connell stood up. She walked over to Preston. "Stand up." Preston stood, his legs trembling. He looked around the room, waiting for someone to save him, to tell him it was just a bad dream. But the walls were glass, and the world could see him. "You can't do this," Preston muttered, tears forming. "It was just a mistake." "A mistake is spilling coffee." Maya's voice came from the back of the room. She had been standing in the shadows near the door. She stepped forward into the light. "What you did was a choice. You chose to be cruel because you thought you were untouchable." She looked at her father on the screen and gave a small nod. "I'm done here, Dad." "Go get your flight, honey," Thomas said, his face softening. "I'll see you in London." Maya turned and walked out of the conference room. She didn't look back as security officers moved in to escort Preston out of the building. She could hear him beginning to sob, a sound of total defeat. But the karma wasn't done yet. As Preston was led through the terminal, stripped of his uniform jacket, carrying his personal belongings in a plastic box, he had to walk past the long line of passengers waiting for the next flight. And there, standing in the queue, was the woman with the ponytail, the one who had jeered at Maya, the one who had pushed past her. She was arguing with a gate agent. "What do you mean my status is suspended?" the woman was shrieking. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the new gate agent said politely. "Your account has been flagged for abusive behavior toward fellow passengers based on a report filed by corporate security. You've been placed on the no-fly list for Horizon Air, pending review. You'll need to leave the line." The woman turned, her face red with shock, and locked eyes with Preston as he was marched past her. Two bullies, stripped of their power in the same hour. Preston lowered his head, the shame burning his skin like acid. He had wanted to be the king of the gate. Now, he was just another cautionary tale, walking out the automatic doors into the cold rain, leaving his career behind him on the other side of the security checkpoint. The cabin of the Delta One suite was a sanctuary of soft leather and hushed tones, a stark difference from the fluorescent purgatory of the holding cell Maya had just left. As she settled into seat 1A, the very seat she had fought for, the flight service manager appeared. She was a woman with kind eyes and a demeanor that suggested she knew exactly who Maya was. "Ms. Davis," she said softly, placing a glass of vintage champagne and a warm towel on the side table. "Captain Evans asked me to personally welcome you. We are honored to have you with us. If there is anything at all, you need to make this flight more comfortable. You have only to ask." "Thank you," Maya said, taking the glass. Her hand was finally steady. "I just need some quiet." "Understood completely. We'll make sure you aren't disturbed." As the massive engines of the aircraft hummed to life, pushing them into the grey New York sky, Maya reclined her seat. She watched the sprawling grid of Queens disappear beneath the clouds. She felt a strange exhaustion settling into her bones, the adrenaline crash after the fight. She reached for her phone to put it in airplane mode, but a notification banner at the top of the screen caught her eye. It was from Twitter, X, then another from Instagram, then a text from her best friend, Chloe. Maya. OMG, you're trending, Maya frowned. She connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi, her heart skipping a beat. She opened the social media app. The #1 trending topic in the United States was Boycott Horizon. The #2 trend was Justice for Maya. She clicked the hashtag. A video, shaky but high definition, was autoplaying at the top of the feed. It had been filmed by someone standing in the priority line, just a few feet behind the woman who had jeered at her. The video showed everything. It showed Preston's sneer. It captured the audio perfectly. You fit the profile. It showed Maya's calm, dignified refusal to be bullied. It showed the police grabbing her arm while Preston waved sarcastically. But it was the caption that had ignited the firestorm. The video had been posted by Ethan Caldwell, a tech investigative journalist with 4 million followers, known for exposing corporate corruption. He had been on the flight, standing quietly in the background, witnessing the entire event. His caption read, "Just watched Horizon Airgate, Agent Preston humiliate a young woman for the crime of being black in first class. He called the police on her for standing while black." He didn't know she is a top architect and the daughter of the head of aviation safety. But even if she wasn't, is this how we treat people? Horizon Air, you have 1 hour to explain this before I release the rest of the footage. The video had 12 million views in 3 hours. Maya scrolled through the comments. It wasn't just outrage, it was an avalanche. People were cancelling their Horizon credit cards. Major corporate accounts were tweeting public demands for an investigation. The internet detectives had already found Preston's full name, his LinkedIn profile, and even his high school yearbook photo. The hard karma wasn't just a ripple, it was a tsunami. 4,000 miles below, in the rain-soaked parking lot of JFK, Preston sat in his car. He hadn't started the engine yet. He was staring at his phone, his face illuminated by the harsh blue light of the screen. He had expected to be fired. He had expected a reprimand. He hadn't expected to become the most hated man in America before lunch. His phone was vibrating incessantly. Messages from friends asking, "Is this you? Dude, what did you do?" Messages from strangers filled with vitriol. A notification from LinkedIn that his profile was being viewed 5,000 times a minute. He tried to delete his account, but his fingers were shaking too badly. A news alert popped up from CNN. Federal investigation launched into Horizon Air following viral profiling incident involving daughter of safety chief. Preston dropped the phone into the passenger seat as if it were burning hot. He looked out the windshield at the terminal building, the kingdom he used to rule. He realized with a sick, sinking feeling that he could never work in aviation again. He wouldn't just be unemployed, he would be unemployable. The name Preston was now shorthand for incompetence and bigotry. He put his head on the steering wheel and screamed, a sound that was swallowed by the roar of a jet taking off overhead. Maya's jet. London was draped in a rare golden sunshine when Maya landed. She moved through Heathrow with the ease of a seasoned traveller. But this time, there was a difference. The staff at passport control smiled at her with recognition. A baggage handler gave her a subtle nod of respect. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was a symbol. Her father was waiting for her in the arrivals hall. Thomas Davis wasn't a man given to public displays of affection. But the moment he saw her, he bypassed the barrier and pulled her into a crushing hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that." "I'm okay, Dad," Maya said, pulling back to look at him. She saw the fatigue in his eyes. He had been fighting a war on 2 fronts all night. I'm really okay. Better than okay. They took a black cab to the Savoy, where Thomas was staying. Dinner that evening was a quiet affair in a private corner of the hotel's grill room. The noise of the scandal felt distant here, replaced by the clink of silver and the murmur of polite conversation. Pendleton resigned an hour ago, Thomas said quietly, cutting into his steak. Maya paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. The CEO? Resigned. The board forced him out, Thomas explained. The stock price dropped 8% in 6 hours. They needed a sacrificial lamb, and Preston wasn't big enough. They needed to show they were cleaning house from the top down. He took a sip of wine. And the woman? The one in the line? Mrs. Gable, Maya said, remembering the name from the police report she had seen briefly. Banned for life from all SkyTeam Alliance airlines, Thomas said, with grim satisfaction. Apparently, her employer, a rather large investment bank, didn't appreciate her representing their brand by heckling a victim of profiling. She's on indefinite leave. It was the complete destruction of the opposition. It should have felt triumphant. And yet, Maya felt a lingering weight. It's not enough, Dad, she said. Thomas looked at her, intrigued. You destroyed a CEO and a gate agent, and you trended higher than the Super Bowl. What else do you want? I want to make sure it doesn't happen to the girl who doesn't have your number in her phone, Maya said. The girl who isn't an architect, the one who just gets dragged off and charged with a crime she didn't commit. Thomas smiled. It was a slow, proud smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick document. He slid it across the table. I thought you might say that, he said. Maya looked at the cover sheet. It was a draft proposal for the FAA. The title read, The Davis Amendment, Mandatory Bias Training and Real-Time Adjudication, Protocols for Passenger Denials. It proposes an independent ombudsman at every major international airport, Thomas explained. Someone who isn't employed by the airline. If a passenger disputes a denial of boarding based on identity, they have the right to an immediate third-party review before police can be involved. It takes the power out of the hands of the Prestons of the world. Maya ran her hand over the paper. This was it. This was the real victory. The viral video would fade. The firing of Preston would be forgotten. But this was structure. This was architecture, applied to the law. I have a meeting with the Transport Secretary on Tuesday, Thomas said. I want you there. I want you to present it. Maya looked up at him. Me? I'm just an architect. You, Thomas said firmly, are the woman who refused to move. Who better to tell them why they need to build a better system? Maya looked out the window at the Thames River, glittering in the twilight. She thought of the moment at the podium, the fear, the humiliation. She thought of the shame she had felt. And then she thought of the future, a future where another girl, standing in another line, might look at a gate agent and know she had the law on her side. Okay, Maya said, lifting her glass. Let's build it. They clinked glasses. The sound was clear and sharp, like a bell ringing out the end of an old era and the beginning of a new one. The story of Maya Davis is more than just a viral moment or a tale of revenge. It is a reminder that dignity is not something that is given to us by people in uniforms or expensive suits. It is something we carry within us, something that cannot be scanned or revoked. Preston and the system he represented thought power came from the ability to exclude others. They learned, in the hardest way possible, that true power comes from integrity, truth, and the courage to stand your ground when the world tries to push you aside. Maya didn't just win a seat on a plane, she cleared the runway for everyone who comes after her. Sometimes, the most important journeys aren't the ones we take to new destinations, but the ones we take to reclaim our place in the world. Thank you for watching this story. If you believe in standing up for what's right, and love seeing karma hit exactly where it's deserved, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder of their own strength, and subscribe for more real-life drama stories every week. See you in the next one.